Now that I've finished Trails from Zero and Trails to Azure, the two stories that make up the Crossbell arc of the Trails series of games, I want to give you my impressions of both, and this video will serve as a mini review. Now, there won't be any major spoilers, as I won't be discussing major character development points, story points, or other important events, and I feel it's best for you to discover those on your own. I will be making an occasional reference to other games in the series, but I feel major comparisons between the games and where even to start this series are all topics for a future video. Also, in the interest of full disclosure, these opinions are my own and not of Falcom or NIS America. Once again, I am Jason from Cyber Silence JRPG Gaming Room, and let's get right into it. Trails from Zero takes place about 3 months after Trails in the Sky, the third chapter, within the city-state of Crossbell and the surrounding area, with a new cast of main characters and a new story. While some players may feel a bit of location fatigue as the world you're exploring is smaller in scale than the Sky or Cold Steel arcs, I am fine with it as it allowed for a greater sense of focus in the story and character development. The backdrop of a political proxy war between two major powers, corruption within the Crossbell government itself, and two crime syndicates running amok, takes center stage in the first game and are some of the reasons for the formation of the Special Support Section, a unit that is part of but runs separately from the police department, as the main police department often has its hands tied due to the political environment. In this group is where our four main protagonists, Lloyd Bannings, Ellie McDowell, Tito Plato, and Randy Orlando, are featured. Well, at first this group is charged with taking care of some of the rather menial support requests. They quickly become useful as they are responsible for uncovering and exposing some of the major shenanigans from one of the major crime syndicates, and the exposure of other individuals working from behind the scenes. I felt that the story was very well written and put together in the first game. The political and corruption backdrop are well woven into the other mysteries where the quote-unquote higher elements are involved. Getting into those parts of the story will make for one big spoil after another, but rest assured, it is how these elements are interwoven that makes up for an excellent story. Out of the two games, Trails from Zero is shorter and is a prologue for the big events that will happen in the second game. So, it goes without saying, it is important that you play Trails from Zero first, as many events that happen in the second game won't make any sense if you try to dive into that one first. So, what about the story of Trails to Azure? Well, as you play along, you will experience how some of the events that are focused more on the Crossbell in the first game fit into a much bigger narrative for what's going on in other parts of the continent, while still maintaining a focus on Crossbell. Interestingly, if you started your Trails journey with the first two Cold Steel chapters as I did and kept asking yourself, what the heck is going on in Crossbell, then many of your questions will be answered as you play along in the Crossbell arc. On that score, I felt satisfied about my questions being answered. As for character development, it is hard to separate the games, but the main cast does grow into development over the course of both games, and it has been said by many that the focus on the smaller cast is a strength of this arc. The characters and their interactions are realistic and involve some memorable moments, and I can't really find a reason to disagree with the observations made by others. There are exceptions, of course. I'm going to touch on two issues that I had with the Trails to Azure. One has to do with the actions of a certain character towards the end of the game. The problem is, I don't buy it, and it pulled me out of the narrative. I can't give details without giving away major spoilers, and I'm sure some people won't see it the same way that I do, but as for me, it was enough to make the Jenga tower wobble and have a few blocks fall off. The other issue that I have is while the stakes for what is going on in the overall story and how the arc fits into the series is fine, I felt that what was at stake for the characters sometimes felt a little flat. In fact, as an example, there's something that should have happened in the aforementioned character that did not happen. To end on a more positive note, there is a character story arc that starts in the Sky trilogy and continues through here, and it is very well done. People who have played the games know exactly what I'm talking about, and as for the rest of you, as River Song would say, spoilers. Yes, that is a Doctor Who reference from me, and while it may be off base, it is possible that one of the translators may be given a nod to the 10th Doctor. It is subtle, and it is something that is said more than once by a character in Trails to Azure. Put it in the comment section if you think you know what it is. For the graphics, I will review both games since they share the same graphical engine and there aren't too many big changes. Setting aside that I will be showing the Nintendo Switch version, I can make some general comments and I will be making a couple of comparisons with the Sky Trilogy. If you played the Sky Trilogy in Steam, a similar approach of using 2D character models within the 3D environment is used. The city of Crossbell is much bigger than the cities encountered in the Liberal Kingdom. Different parts of the city have their own look and style. The environments have an enhanced 3D look compared to the Sky Trilogy, with the camera moving along with the characters as they move through the environment, rather than more of the side-to-side and top-to-bottom views that were sometimes used in the Sky Trilogy. Both Crossbell games originally came out on the Sony PSP, but I do not have a point of reference for those versions, and I don't know if these changes were introduced in the various ports that came after. I could spend a fair amount of time talking about all the different revisions that have been made with both games since their introduction on the PSP, but there are other videos on YouTube from people that know the details better than I do, so I'll not get into them here. For the PC and Switch ports, Tomos Darate's PhD studio was able to add several graphical enhancements and quality of life improvements to make the games look more modern, including the use of high-res textures and improvements to the shadows and lighting, to name a few. A link that describes these changes is listed below. So how does this stand up as a Switch game? I think it stands up very well. 3D environments are not static, and I think they did a solid job of cleaning things up, so they look good to my eyes, even upscaled on a 4K TV. However, with the Switch version, there can be frame rate hiccups that are not evident in my video captures, but trust me, they do exist. For a game that is not graphically complicated, I don't understand the reason for that. Maybe this doesn't happen in handheld mode, but I would have thought that even the older hardware of the Switch would have been able to handle a game like this without problems. The PS4 version did not receive the same enhancements made to the Switch and PC versions, but one still gets the full game content, and what looks better can be subjective anyways. As for the sound, once again the Falcom sound team gives us another impressive soundtrack, and the music spans several genres from classical, jazz, and some songs that have a more of a rock pop music vibe to them. I must admit that being a former jazz musician, I like Arkansas's track used in the entertainment section, even though it may not be everyone's favorite. Get Over the Barrier and Afternoon Crossbar are often favorites for many from the first game, and Seize the Truth was a popular one from the second game. Unfortunately, I missed out on the collector's edition, which does have a CD, though it's still not the full soundtrack. The regular version of the game does come with a small sample of songs. If you want the entire soundtrack, you'll need to either import it or purchase it digitally from a place like the iTunes Store or on Amazon. Now, my ears are telling me that some of the tracks are from the original soundtrack, not from later versions, so it is possible that a mix of both versions were used for these releases, but honestly, I don't know. If you happen to know one way or another, then please let me know in the comments section. Also, the voice acting that is present in the other versions of these games was used for these ports. I do like the battle cries during battle, and the dialogue that is spoken does seem to have the right emphasis for the situation. However, there is no English dub for the spoken dialogue. I know that may be a bit disappointment for some, as the characters that do appear in later games do have talented English voice actors behind them. As an example, it would have been nice to hear Robbie Damon's talents for Lloyd Bannings in this game. However, given the niche genre for these games and the lack of a dub, it should be of no surprise, as it would have made the games more expensive, and honestly, it took long enough for these games to get an official release as it is. I don't consider this to be a big deal, and I think we should be happy that we even got these games at all. With the gameplay, I'm going to mostly focus on battle mechanics. If you have played the Sky Trilogy, then you will feel right at home with these games. With both games, you fight on an isometric grid, with each member of the team can move a certain number of squares depending on their character and what they have equipped. There is a wheel in the middle that allows you to choose from various options. You can do a straight up physical attack, use one of your crafts, which is more powerful than the standard attacks, or you can use a magical art attack. The turn order for each character and enemy is shown on the left-hand side. Where this becomes important to keep track of are places where the higher elements are involved, such as the ability to execute a death blow. When this appears next to an enemy as a red skull icon next in the turn area, some careful planning with the use of an art or other action might switch the death blow icon in favor to one of your characters. When using arts, it is best to know the enemy's weaknesses. You can get this information while scanning an enemy with the battle scope item or using one of Tio's craft abilities. This information is stored for future encounters, which will be called up with the X button prior to an attack. Of course, if you find that you're completely overwhelmed, making return or F-crafts, a powerful attack that, depending on the attack and the character, might wipe out the entire enemy party. These attacks wipe out your craft points though, so it is best saved for bosses and other hard monster chests. New to the Crossbell arc are special all-out team attacks that occur when you sneak up on an enemy and take them by surprise. Another new feature is you gain access to are crafts that can be used by a pair of team members. These attacks often deliver quite a bit of punishment to multiple enemies, and only half the craft points are used for each teammate. The magical arts that are available for each character will depend on the types of quartz that are equipped. Equipping the stronger quartz in a particular lay will unlock more powerful AoE attacks. Each quartz contains a certain number of elements, and the detective notebook describes how much of each element they will need for a particular spell. All in all, the combat's pretty easy to figure out. I played in normal mode, and in the first game, I didn't need to worry about formations that much. When it comes to boss battles, it really depends on the arts you have and what accessories you're equipped with to resist the worst of the status effects. So you can save anywhere you want in this game outside of battles and cutscenes, so save before that boss battle, and if you're not properly equipped, you can change up on the rematch. The battle system for Trails to Azure does add an element that will be familiar to those who have played the Trails to Cold Steel, and that is the use of Master Quartz, which will grant you a base number of elements depending on the Master Quartz equipped. Some Master Quartz also can give extra buffs for a certain number of turns at the beginning of a battle. These Master Quartz level up with the character that is in possession of them and will provide a higher number of base elements and expended buffs as the Master Quartz levels up. Now, there was one other enhancement that was added to Trails to Azure for battles, but in the game saves that I have to illustrate it would give away a pretty big spoiler, so I'm not going to dwell on it. Just Google Burst Mode. With Trails to Azure, even at normal mode, you will need to think about your formation strategy, especially for later boss battles. Also, it is highly recommended to set up at least one of your characters as an evasion tank. It is possible with a combination of quartz, clothing, weapons, and accessories to have a character with 100% evasion. By the end of my playthrough, I had one character that was at that level and one other that was very close to it. I do have one issue with Trails to Azure when it comes to the final battles. While some of the boss battles can seem to be difficult, that is because they are given a large number of hit points, and I found that some of the final battles to be more tedious rather than difficult. In fact, I found the final level to also be tedious, with it being padded out just for the sake of making it longer. In my opinion, this game could have easily been about 5 to 8 hours shorter. However, I will give props to the penultimate boss fight, as it has some clever battle mechanics. So there you have my mini review. While both games deserve a lot of praise, I did have a few points of criticism. However, I did find my time to be well spent, as I really enjoyed the story and character development aspects of the game. So what did you all think of the games? Well, some people do think that this story arc is the strongest of the series, and there is something to be said for that. What do I think? Well, I'm an Estelle Bright fanboy, so you know what I think about that. Anyways, please let me know what your thoughts are in the comments section down below, but do please keep it civil. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button, and also hit subscribe if you want to know when new content goes up. Anyways, that's all for now. I will catch you next time, and bye-bye.